Well, hello everyone. It's certainly been a while, hasn't it? I do apologise for that. We are, of course, building for the Southern Pudu in this episode. I last uploaded a video about 3 weeks for Dunswell Zoo. Yeah, for those of you that weren't aware, I'm sure most of you are by now, I had some computer issues, some quite significant computer issues. My monitor went and I couldn't get into one of my maps. Frontier very kindly helped me get into one of those. It wasn't Dunswell Zoo, don't worry, it's something else I'm working on. So they helped me get into that. The monitor went, I had to buy a new monitor, and then my operating system corrupted and I had to reinstall everything from scratch. So all my apps, all my games, the Windows operating system itself. Then I was familiarising myself with the Oceania pack when I eventually managed to get back in. And it's been non-stop. Real life stuff's popped up. I'll do a separate video on the real life stuff because it could have an effect on the channel. It might not, but it could. So it's probably something that's worth talking about. But yeah, that's why this episode is A, delayed, and B, a lot shorter than the other ones. Just simply because I haven't had a lot of time. So I wanted to build for a small animal, which would mean a small enclosure, and hopefully something simple. This took about 2 days, I want to say, off the top of my head. A lot of it was just the sort of fine tuning, really, the getting the angles right. That's what took the most time. But we are, of course, building for the Southern Pudu, so let's talk about the Southern Pudu. So it's a native South American species of deer. You can find it in the Valdivian temperate forests of south central Chile and the adjacent Argentina. It is classed as near threatened. It's typically found in forests, including mature and disturbed forests with a dense understory, but does also prefer open spaces with rich vegetation for feeding. It's found along the Chilean coastal range in primary and secondary broadleaf, evergreen and alerce forests. It's also occasionally found in the eucalyptus plantations of South America. And it can, of course, be found in the southern Andes of Chile and Argentina, where it is associated with thickets of bamboo and nothofagus forests. Foraging by Southern Pudu is detrimental to the regeneration of burned forests of the Pilgerodendron. Nevertheless, they are near threatened. They are most impacted by habitat loss, of course, being found in forests and needing open plains to forage. They require two very diverse sets of habitats, and as a result, due to deforestation and agriculture, these habitats are becoming rarer and rarer. The Southern Pudu is one of the smallest species of deer in the world. Those others being the chevrotain, which I believe is also known as the mouse deer. You've got the Indian hog deer. The Northern Pudu is the smallest one, if I remember correctly. And then you've got the chevrotains, which are the mouse deers, yeah. They're smaller, but they're not true deer. So the Northern Pudu is the smallest species of deer in the world. So that's interesting. That's new. Yeah, Southern Pudus. So I visited a zoo that has Southern Pudus. I visited this zoo 4 times in the past 3 years, and I have never seen the Pudu there. They have them, and they've even bred successfully, but I've just never seen them. They've never popped their heads out when I've been there. And that was something I wanted to replicate building this enclosure, was the secretiveness of the Pudu. There are a few zoos in the UK that actually have Pudu, but they're just such an elusive animal that not many people have seen them. So building the habitat, I took a lot of inspiration from my own experiences with Pudu. That being the general secretiveness of the Pudu from Chester Zoo. So I took inspiration from their habitat in terms of the types of viewing, which are little sort of viewing windows. That's the only way to view them. There's no mesh or anything like that. In terms of sort of the planting and the rock work, I looked at Biopark La Fontaine, if I remember correctly. That's got a lot of nice planting, and there's like a rock backdrop, so I took inspiration from that. The scaling of the planting and the scaling of the habitat itself was very difficult because the Pudu are so small that even the smallest plants in the game sort of tower over them. So scaling it, but also keeping it sort of accurate to the animal's habitat in the wild, was very difficult. And for that, I drew some inspiration from Rotterdam Zoo. So they have a lot of trees in their Pudu enclosure that are sort of like sapling height, but then there's also some taller trees for the shade and the canopy sort of cover, stuff like that. I really liked that, so I tried to incorporate some elements of that into the habitat. And then just the general sort of overgrownness of the habitat. I looked at Marwell Zoo for that in the United Kingdom. If I understand correctly, they no longer have Southern Pudu and haven't for many years. The image I took inspiration from was from 2002, so we're talking a very long time ago. It's 21 years ago. It's a very simple habitat. There's just grass and some tall trees and some logs. But you could see the Pudu in there just fine. What else can I talk about with the Pudu in this habitat? It was tricky getting the angles on this habitat. I wanted it to hug the path. I didn't want it to be away from the path or anything like that. I wanted it to hug the path. I think for me the trickiest part of building this habitat was getting the look right. So it's a very secretive animal, but you still want to be able to see it, and you want to be able to replicate the habitat as naturally as possible. I do apologise about the notification popping up in the bottom right hand corner. I think it's on the recording and it's not on my computer. If it is in the recording, I do apologise. If it's on my computer, it doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. I'm still to figure everything out on Windows 11, which I'm now on, rather than Windows 10. And obviously I had to reinstall everything from scratch, so some of the settings still need putting back how I had them before. So Steam notifications keep popping up every so often, it's very annoying. So here I wanted some terrain variation. I wanted like a little hill at the back. Ultimately I end up taking this out. It just doesn't look right. There isn't enough space in the habitat for this hill to look natural and right. So I just remove it in the end, and you'll see that coming up shortly. And you can have, as far as the game is concerned, 1 male and 4 females for the Pudu. But this habitat, although it can house 1 male and 4 females, I designed it purely for a breeding pair. and obviously when they have offspring, they're offspring. So we've only got the one shelter for now. The shelter, which you'll probably see me start building in a moment, did my absolute head in. I wanted a really small shelter, just something nice and simple, but not a box, so I went for this. And nothing was lining up on the grid, everything was off kilter, and it looked too big and too chunky. In the end, I decided to just copy the shelter we used for the armadillos. That works fine. That shelter for the Pudu, they can access it just fine. So we just go with that. And it does look alright in the end, to be fair. I just wanted to do something a bit more rustic, but it just wasn't having it. Now we move on to the planting and the rock work, of course. So again, scaling was a major thing here. I didn't want to have the Pudu get lost in this habitat. I didn't want like stones to completely tower over them and for the trees to just be completely like massive. So we go for a nice mix of sort of mid-height trees and sort of low plants and grasses and shrubs, things like that. And it turns out alright. It could do with a few more plants here and there. I may well do that at a later date, and perhaps so the rock work could do with some more TLC. But certainly, considering I was stuck for time and I had like a million other different things going on, this turned out alright. I was happy with how this turned out. It's not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it serves its purpose and it looks as close to what I had in mind as I can feasibly get within the restrictions of the game. And yeah, we do move away from the native South American plants. We add some more sort of temperate plants in. And I believe we're coming up to the end of the speed build section. Yep. And we're going to move into the cinematics. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me during the wait. I will see you all very soon, either in the next episode of Dunswell Zoo or in the little update video I'm going to be doing. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, I shall see you all very soon. I'm on Instagram, fairly active on Instagram, at JW_YT. Until the next time, my friends, stay safe, enjoy the cinematics, and bye-bye for now.